Did everyone get their first Heel the Bay IPA today? Give me a holler if you did. All right. Thank you to Golden Road for hosting us and providing that beer. Please, if at any time you guys need to fill your glasses, the bartenders back here can probably help you out with that. And definitely stick around afterwards for networking. I see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces, so hopefully I get the chance to meet most of you. For those of you who aren't aware, I am Chris Fenari. I'm the editor of Brewbound.com, and we're taking this Brew Talks traveling meetup series on the road all over the West Coast this week. We were at the Lost Abbey in San Diego last night, had a very successful, great event there. And tonight, obviously, here at Golden Road, and then a quick turnaround off to Seattle tomorrow and Portland on Saturday. So it's quite the trip for us, but we really appreciate everyone coming out and supporting. We got some great content lined up, and these three fine folks sitting next to me, I'll introduce them now. To my left is Jeff from Sunset Beer. Sunset Beer is sort of a unique retail account in LA on and off premise, so you can come and have a beer and then buy your bottle and take it home as well. And we have Anne. She is one of the partners in Simmzy's and Tin Roof Bistro, very craft savvy on-premise chain, a few restaurants and bars. So she's also a certified Cicerone, if I'm not mistaken. So she is going to provide all our wisdom on beer styles and sort of what the appetite for craft beer is in LA tonight. And down there on the far left is my good friend Jace Milstead. He's the craft brand manager for Ace Beverage Company and Mission. Had to toss it in there.
Such good friends he doesn't know. That's cool. That's cool.
And Jace also likes to open his mouth a lot. Yeah. Jace actually was one of my speakers at our full-day business conference that we put on December 5th. We're doing our next one in San Diego. So hopefully if you guys like what you see tonight, there's more similar content like this at our full-day thing. And Jace was the worst speaker we had at that last time. So
Second worst. He doesn't count himself.
So for this first panel tonight, we're going to be talking about the craft beer market in LA. At every stop along the way, we're trying to zero in at least for about a half hour on what's going on in the local market that we're visiting. So we're going to examine the environment for craft in Los Angeles tonight. Jace, Jeff, and Ann will look to explain sort of why the craft beer marketplace is a little bit underdeveloped here in LA and how that's changing now. So let's start by discussing, what the current consumer appetite is for craft beer in LA. And Jeff, I'll start with you.
I think it's huge, and it keeps growing. I think, like in the last year alone, how much we've kind of grown, and we see a lot of familiar faces here. But I think it's limitless right now. It's moving good.
Yeah. And Ann, what are you recognizing in terms of the consumers coming into your restaurants?
Oh man, it is such an exciting time to be in LA with all the brewers coming in, all the choices, the relationships with all the local people. It's been really neat because when we started, there really wasn't any local brew, happening. And now it's just astonishing. And people love it. People love to hear about it and learn about it, and they just can't get enough. It's really neat, exciting time.
Right. And Jace, you're out visiting, all these accounts and pounding the pavement every day. What are people saying?
From what I can remember when I'm sober, it's a lot of really enjoying. I think not only the beer itself, but I think what's exciting about LA is it's creating a culture now. And the beer has been there for a while in terms of other places, but I think the fact we're all sitting here in this room is proof that there's a culture that's going on, and people are getting excited about that. They're sitting on porches and they're drinking and they're talking about the beer that they're drinking as opposed to where their next audition is theoretically, or something like that. So that's where I'm seeing it going, is creating more than just putting these beers places, but creating a family of people that drink them and have a like-minded to create actually more than just sort of the sum of its parts.
Right. And I think you've probably been around the market for a while. What did craft look like, 10 years ago and then, 5 years ago? How have you really seen that change being in that on-premise world?
Yeah, it's been a huge change. 10 years ago, I was the chef and wine buyer for a restaurant group, and we had a couple of taps, and I thought, gosh, I wonder if I can just find someone local to make some beer for us, something fun, besides Bud and Stella or whatever we had on tap. So we did happen to have a brewery in our group. So I went to to the brewmaster and talked to him, and we're tasting all his beers, and he's got these secret saisons hidden that in his little bottles, and he's letting me taste those, and I was like, please, man, just make us a beer for the store up in Westwood. We would sell it like crazy. And he goes, are you kidding, man? That gives me more work. I don't want to do that. And so I was never able
to that guy.
It's like I wasn't able to get anything local. And now it's just amazing.
Right. And Jeff, you have some experience actually from different parts of the country. You've spent time on the East Coast and I think up in the Pacific Northwest. I know you visited a few times. What are sort of the differences that you can tell, immediately from those markets to LA?
Yeah, I think that's part of the challenges that we deal with, is that it's kind of a learning culture of how the craft beer business works. Seasonals, one-offs, and I think coming from like Washington D.C. area is very like beer nerd centric, where people are on the computer all day long with their office job, and they probably know more than you do in the shop, like when something's coming out, and they've been through it longer, so they kind of know how it works, and that's part of the issue here, is like trying to explain to people how when stuff comes out, why it comes out that time of year, and then starting to go from there.
So the consumer isn't
They're
just
learning here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
as a publican, I think, do you want that nerdy guy coming like, hey fella, where's the aroma coma, or would you rather like be educating? Because the more guys come into me and are busting your chops because they couldn't get a knuckle sandwich,
Right,
is that good or bad? Like, what's your preference?
It's all good.
It's all good.
No,
I love all my customers.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's part of the joy of it, is exposing people to new things, and that's, I think a lot of, like reading over the questions earlier, a lot of what I want to talk about is the sort of, no, not all the questions.
We have
but,
no notes on this computer here.
No, just like trying to establish that trust with the consumer, and I think that's what we've tried to do, and that's people come back to us because they want to kind of not have their hands held, but kind of exposed to new things, and that's part of, we're learning it together. We're learning what people like to drink in the neighborhood, and
Right.
It's kind of like this nice, I don't know, it's just happening so quick.
And on that point, if any of you guys have questions for our speakers and you guys are on your phones, you can actually tweet with the hashtag Brew Talks. I'll get it up here, and I'll do my best to ask these guys your questions. You guys are in LA, a lot of you, so
Keep it clean.
you probably know
ladies.
way more than me. But that being said, you're talking a lot about the different type of consumer that's in LA, and maybe not quite as educated as some other markets, say San Diego or Portland. San Diego's a really great example because it is so close, and just a couple hours away. And yet craft is such a bigger share of the overall market there in San Diego. Why is it so much different, and it's just a short 2-hour drive up here in LA? I mean, is it a population thing? What's really driving the difference between those two markets, you think?
To me, it's a little bit, it's kind of like trying to get everyone here from, most people here are from someplace else, and so I think San Diego kind of has that San Diego pride that they want to drink what's local there. It's kind of built into everything they do there, and I think it's a little bit more problematic here. Like, you have the Dodgers and the Lakers that kind of can combine the city together, but it's harder, I think, and that's talking about Portland or other places. There's kind of this fanaticism about like drinking local,
Right.
and I don't know, I see it growing here, but I think that's part of the challenge. Like, when people come in the shop, they want to drink what they drank in their hometown,
Sure.
and they're starting to get it. They're starting to get that there's more available down here. But
And that's a great analogy too. People do look at breweries as teams as well. I mean, even within the LA breweries that we have, there's sort of a stratification. There's I'm team bootleggers, or I'm team,
Right.
whatever it is. And I think we're trying to get to a place where we're creating a camaraderie. But I think LA culture has been that way for a while, where it's very divisive, and you bring sort of something from someplace else. And so, as opposed to sharing the local being your team, it's these little pieces that you pull.
Right.
And I think we're trying to kind of open that up, and that's one of the things I really hope to do is just create this. Again, I go back to that community thing. It's just getting everybody on the same team and just everybody drinking better beer. To jump in on your question, go on.
And have you noticed that? Have you noticed consumers coming in, like, specifically requesting certain breweries' beers and sort of that divided nature? Or are they more coming in just saying, what's local, what's craft?
I think it's a mix of both. Like you were saying, we get the total geeked out person, but we also get the person that just wants to know what's new, what's happening, and I don't know. I don't know. We just sort of get a mix, but the thing is that there's passion. every guest seems to be passionate on some level about it.
And obviously you guys have created a little bit of a market for that as well by serving up the beers and, pairing it with, good quality food. You've almost created that market, and maybe not every single account is going to be that way. And that's where I'll maybe, toss it to Jace. You're out there visiting all different types of accounts, very craft savvy accounts like Simmzy's or Tin Roof Bistro, and then
Try to avoid them, but as an example, theoretically.
And last night actually in San Diego, Chad Heath from Stone Distributing had said that they personally have added about 2,000 points of different distribution here in LA over the last 4 years.
Bastards.
From your perspective, what sorts of distribution points are those? Are those more off-premise or are they on-premise, you think?
You mean Stone in specific, or their brands, or you just mean that's where the business
All
is going?
all those new points of distribution, do you think they're more off-premise accounts, or are they more restaurant bar owners, putting up, setting up shop?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, I think especially for the sort of newer and smaller breweries, I think you're going to your leading edge is draft. I mean, that's where you're a little bit more nimble. It's easier to get into those places and have more opportunities. To get into the chains especially, I mean, that's pretty rarefied air. If you're going to go from that small brewery to that next level, I used to work at Firestone Walker, and to see them from when I first started to where they are now, actually passing that 100,000 barrel threshold a couple years ago, it's chain driven. To be able to get in there, though, you have to have a great chain person, you have to have product, and you have to have a proven track record. Then you have to be able to keep track of that on IRI. So it becomes a little bit more business-oriented. But when you're definitely that smaller thing, you're looking at the places like Jeff's Place, and you're going to get an opportunity there. So there is that stratification, I feel like, in the market where those points of distribution are, and Stone's does a great job, as much as I hate to say it, and I hope nobody's here from that recording. This isn't on film. There's no sound on this, right? You'd be so happy if there's no sound, guys. Is that they've created a portfolio which encompasses all those things. Stone, which has a great amount of chain distribution, as well as something like, much to my chagrin, they picked up Smog City. Thanks, Lori. No, it was a good interview, but she said, my looks were intimidating. Let's just say that. That is not true. It's usually me saying that to women, so it's nice to get it from the other direction. But and then somebody who's new to the, you're not even bottling yet, but everybody wants their beer in places, but that's an on-premise thing. So you'll walk in these places and be like, how'd they get their beer on? It's like, because it's good, it's new, and people are excited about it. So a long answer to which is to say, everywhere.
Right. Until Golden Road laid down some roots here, and from what Meg tells me, there really was a lack of a well-established local brand in LA. Do you think that really has hindered the growth, not having that sort of go-to category captain in LA to look towards? I mean, you can probably speak to that pretty well.
No, for sure. I mean, that's one thing that's so nice about Golden Road is that they're trying to be that, and you want to be able to go to Dodger Stadium and see that's the LA beer. You want to go to these signature places in LA and see a brand, and it hasn't. I mean, we're not quite there yet, but
right.
And that's part of
She can hear you.
What's that? No, it's growing. it's moving, but that's where we want to see it. You want to have that LA beer, and it's exciting because that's what it's moving towards. But
I agree, and that creates what we talked before, sort of that. Then you're identifying there's your hub of a home team, and not to put them in that category per se, because I know there's many LA breweries. I don't want to dance with the one that brung me, so to speak. But it is nice to have those brands that you can cling to, and you're saying these are locals, these are our guys, and then you sort of create that culture behind that.
And they become entry points into everything else.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like every major city has that that one or two brands that are really identifiable about that town. Even if it has changed over a few years. I mean, if you look at San Francisco, there's Anchor, or in Boston, it's Harpoon or Boston Beer Company. In Chicago, it's Goose Island. There's always one or two brands that are very identifiable with that city. Why did no one think to start a brewery in LA until a year and a half ago that was really aiming to be that one identifiable brand? Any
Let
thoughts?
you tackle this one, Anne.
I think it's the same reason we don't have a football team. I think that there's just
Commissioner Goodell?
yeah, that guy.
Bastards and beer too.
it's scary. There's a lack of center here in a way.
Is it too big? Is LA too big for one brand to really be that category leader?
Maybe. But if anyone's going to be able to do it, Meg can.
Actually, I just had
We'll get to you, baby.
I won't say anything other than for Chris to identify the difference between where Jeff is and Anne is and how widespread and diverse LA is, because where Jeff is, there are a lot of young professionals just starting out, where Anne is completely other side of a 10 million person base, which is LA County.
Yeah.
People building families and mega $1 million homes on the beach. It's very different, and to identify to both is the big challenge.
Yeah, two completely different consumers, I would imagine.
Yeah.
You know, in talking, I'm going to take over now because Meg did. No, but in your Long Beach store, in your Manhattan Beach store, and obviously you're now going to Venice and things like that, do you notice that there is, even amongst the locals, because you have, Torrance, you've got Strand, you've got Monkish, and now, Phantom Carriage is coming out and all these other brands. Do you notice that there is a sort of even a more micro local thing that has its more pull in each of these places? Is there that locality, even this micro locality?
Oh, definitely in the Manhattan Beach location. And it has to do, what people drink has to do with what we buy. And each store has its own beer buyer. And Greg, having been in the Manhattan Beach store, he really is tied into you guys and just Monkish, everyone in the Torrance area, and has great relationships with them. Is able to just take a firkin over there and fill it for a cast night. So yeah, it's definitely part of who we are there.
But I think Torrance is so important, the same way that having you guys here and then Eagle Rock down there is to see these breweries grow together in kind of the same areas, where it's because it is so hard to get around this town. So if you have a brewery there and there and there, you can't spend a Saturday and hit 3 breweries and learn more.
Sure.
And so it's great to have Torrance, because then you have 4 different, was it 4 or 5 now? How many there?
3 was Taprooms and 2 more.
Yeah, coming and it's so great. And you have the beer hop bus and stuff like that. They can transport people, and it's just, you need to have that. I mean, San Diego, you can hit 3, 4, 5 in a couple hours, and
Yep.
It's so important to have that here because it's just too big.
Right. So speaking of the sort of amount of breweries, what are you guys seeing in the market in terms of how many breweries are actually trying to launch and get off the ground? How many have launched recently? We've obviously heard of a few, but you guys are here on the ground. How many people are actually trying to start breweries in LA right now?
My dentist is opening one, I think, in a couple weeks. He says, he's on top of it. He's got some guys investing in him, looking into some stuff. But he's a good dentist. I mean, so I'm sure he'll do great at brewing. But it does seem that way. It's that, every time you think somebody's getting fired, oh man, sorry, no, I'm opening a brewery. Are you getting fired, or are you getting up in the ladder? The greatest thing apparently is just to get fired in this town, because it just means you're going to get a brewery. I pray I get fired, and by this performance I may. I would like a brewery. I mean, it won't be any good because I can't brew and nobody wants to talk to me, but you can see as though it would just be nice to say, because chicks dig brewers.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, go on.
You don't have a big enough beard, though. Yeah.
I can't grow it. It's all patchy. It's not good.
How many new brands from LA come across your desk?
From LA, not a huge amount, but I do hear about a lot. I mean, Highland Park Brewing is opening. There's Dry Creek or Dry Lake or whatever it's coming out.
Yep, Dry River.
Dry River. Those are just the ones I thought of off the top of my head today. And there's Ohana's up and running relatively recently. Obviously, Phantom Carriage is Torrance, but they're just kind of up in the market now too. And believe me, by show of hands, who has a brewery that they're opening in the next 6? I don't know if you can see it, but the people up there, all of them.
There's a few startups here in the room, I think, that are looking to launch in LA. And from what we've sort of heard is that it is a strategic maneuver, opening up in LA, because there is a huge population of potential consumers and relative lack of breweries to fill that niche and fill that void. So I guess what's it going to take? How are these breweries going to solve sort of that LA equation of becoming known for craft beer? I mean, at what point does LA sort of turn the tide and become a destination for craft beer like San Diego or like Portland?
Well, I think it has. 5 years ago when I was coming here, I was coming to town and looking for San Diego beer. Like, had no idea that LA had beer. And so now when people come to town to visit me, I can take them to breweries. Like,
Right.
It's here, and they're enjoying it. And it's obviously not a lot's available back east from most of my people are coming from, but there's places now, and I think it's already turning. It's already there. But it's, well, I don't know if this is from the last question too, but it's hard, like for us, when we can only have 6 taps, with so many different breweries opening, like we want to always promote local, but it becomes difficult because, you can have something on tap 1 week and then it might not come back around for 4 months. So like that's why bottles are huge for us because, not everyone's bottling yet, and we want to be fair and promote everybody, but it just gets hard because there's a lot happening now. And
How many of the brands that you carry in your store are local brands? What percentage of your mix would you say it is?
oh, it's low. I mean,
It's pretty low.
but
Is that just because of availability?
yeah, and because not everyone's bottling.
Right. Do you?
It's in at anything's in at any given point, but
Two equivalent beers or one that's, they're both sort of mediocre. We probably wouldn't bring in the other one, but if it's local, are you willing to sort of take more of a chance on it, even
Sure.
though you're not necessarily a fan of the beer?
yeah, absolutely. But that's who am I?
Keep
to
that
say?
in mind, new brewers.
Who am I to say it's good?
There's
you
a
know,
Spotted Sunset Beer Company.
I know we need to get bigger.
That's actually an interesting point. What is the quality of beer here in LA? We've only had a short amount of time to try some of the beer here, and even for us, it's really the offerings are sometimes inundating when we go to a place and we just throw a dart at the wall and kind of take our best bet. There's so many new brands everywhere we go. What's the quality like in LA from some of these breweries? And be honest.
You're probably seeing, more roll throughs from you guys. You have more taps.
man.
You probably must see a ton of the newer
Yeah.
stuff.
I think it's great. I can't even believe that you can open a brewery and be good right off the bat, but so many people have been able to do it. I don't know how. As a chef, are you kidding? How many times I do a dish before I actually serve it? But these brewers seem to just right out of the gate, they're hitting their stride, and not everybody.
How are
but-
you as a chef? How are you sort of adapting your business model to work with these craft brewers? Are you designing pairings and stuff with them? Or?
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to integrate the food element and the pairing element when we do tap takeovers, that sort of thing, just to give an added little hook to getting people to come in and try the beer and that sort of thing. I tell you, craft being in the beer part of the business is completely different than the food part. Because, like, if I had a special dinner and I called up my vendor and I said, you know what, I need some Valrhona chocolate, I need the 56%, not the 72%, and I need it tomorrow. The guy would be, okay, chef, no problem. It'll be, but I can't, with beer, it's not like that at all. You can't just call and say, hey, I really want, some more blah, blah. They'll be, oh, well, we don't have any right now.
Right.
Everyone's out. Everyone's at capacity. So it's a completely different thing. And of course, when you start talking about big distributors, like especially,
Those jackasses.
It would be, well, when can I, is there any way I can get something from up north? And it'd be only if you have 3 of our handles. And as a chef, that was hard to adjust to, because as a chef, you get anything you want from your
Right.
vendors. The next
don't respect
day,
me as much.
I know. So with beer, it's relationship driven and tit for tat, and so that's been a little bit, just something to get used to.
Do you think that could be holding back some of the progress? I mean, if it's, like you said, you really want to put a certain beer on tap, but they're saying, well, we'll give it to you if you add 2 more handles from us. I think that would be, it would almost make it more difficult to keep pushing craft forward in LA if that's the case.
But isn't that sort of the old way that things were dealt with?
Yeah, I mean, legally you
Yeah.
can't do that anyway,
Right.
and I know some distributors, and I'm honest to say, we won't actually say that. Obviously, there's sort of an implication there that you don't want to give an account the most special beer on the planet when they don't even carry the regular everyday stuff.
Right.
And in fact, that I think retards growth, because you're not really supporting these breweries. You're just, you're cherry picking off the top because this is the most special thing that you can possibly get, and that's lovely, and that's one night. But if you really want to create a community and you really want to support a brewery, it's to have all these other things in there, and some you may like more than others, or maybe there's one that you like a ton, and that's the one that you keep on. But I think it's the exact opposite, where to only expect to be able to do those things. If you were to go to that vendor and
Yeah.
all I say is, hey, how are you, Anne? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you want the special thing again? That's awesome. Can I sell you some ground beef? No, we don't. No, we don't want that horse shit. But that you could see where your relationship
course.
with them is not going to be such that
Not as valued.
I
yeah.
totally get that, and I also think that it must be frustrating for breweries and distributors. In the culture of craft has evolved in such a way that people want it to be their taps to be rotating all
Right.
the time, and when they go into a store like yours, they want to take things they've never,
Right.
all of a sudden their cart is full of beers they've never heard of, never
it's-
tried before.
It's hard for us to sell a 6-pack of the same beer.
Yeah, I
You know,
bet.
like no one wants to do it. They want to have one, and
Yeah.
it's
Looking on your taps though, and you're certainly a smaller rail than a lot of places we deal with. Do you find that I'll use the Drakes for instance, because we did an event there a week ago. So we had the Aroma Coma, we had the Aroma Prieta, and all the other things. Do you find that if you were to put on a 1500 though, that's just not gonna move because it's not crazy special, or is there a crowd for taking those regular things and they're gonna mix it in with the special?
well, probably me, but
Yeah.
Well, and it's
no, I think that's part of learning our customer base is that yes, the huge beers sell obviously great, but we're seeing more and more people just wanting the lighter styles.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just because of the weather or what, but
Well, but I mean, I meant more.
you know,
I guess
more
flagship
sessionable.
versus specialties. Are your customers willing to
Well, they just
eschew some of the specialties to actually like drink the classics and things like that if they're on there?
they just don't quite understand that it's hard to make those beers, and they
Right.
only come out every so often.
Right.
They don't understand that, you can maybe get 12 bottles of that. And
Right.
like,
So the answer is no, they won't. They won't drink the
I mean,
regular stuff.
No, they will drink the regular stuff.
Oh,
but
yeah.
But it's hard for us,
Well,
because
yeah, and they're usually like the 5 gallons, and they go like that.
Yeah.
It's not like it's always there competing for the regular core products.
Right, but to me, it goes sort of back to what we're trying to create here in Los Angeles of a sort of a home team spirit of supporting local and doing these other things. But then when we select our beers at the places, we don't do the same thing. We only cherry pick those other things we want as opposed to creating that. And I think, unfortunately, LA is a market that's sort of gotten to that point where everybody wants to be that top high echelon bar that only gets the special stuff before really earning it. And I think that's a very LA mentality that you just kind of want to be the best of the best at the beginning, and there's not a ton of, really working your way through the ranks. And I think that can be a bit of an issue in terms of creating this better beer culture and actually then supporting the growth of these breweries.
And I was going to say, it's got to make it really challenging for some of these breweries to build a base,
Yeah.
a loyal consumer base, or build a brand.
and
Having
from-
a constant tap handle is so key.
Well, and that's the key too. Is it's such a cyclical nature of the specific beers themselves. I mean, we have thousands of SKUs in our distributor, and you only want to carry those things that are going to sell, and you don't want them sitting on the floor because you want things fresh. So a product doesn't sell well for a while, and then I've got they're all great. One of my craft reps here, he'll go into an account and he'll find an account like, I want that, and you're like, that's awesome. And then they want to carry that for a long time. You're like, we've sold like none of that for 6 months, and now that guy wants to bring 10 of them in all the time. It's so difficult to sort of predict what's going to be popular because it is so volatile out there. And you guys are also fickle, and I'm exactly like you. But I don't know how to, I need a crystal ball, like a gypsy, and like a Quaalude. I need something to like put this all together and figure out the hell's going to happen, but I have not cracked the code yet.
Well, that's
Yeah.
one of my questions for you is that
About Quaaludes or gypsies?
no, like how do you go about how successful do you think you guys are
Oh.
for ordering enough of like a seasonal like
We are,
because it is
it's extraordinarily difficult, and probably the most difficult thing about this job, other than the seeing myself vastly grow in the waistline in the mirror and the amount of soap that causes, because it's a bigger body, it's a lot of soap, and I shower occasionally, is that idea of inventory, just making sure you have enough and not too much, because it's just as bad to have too much as it is not enough, and it's getting to know your market better. Kind of knowing the how good the beer is and how it's going to sell, and that takes a little bit of time. But honestly, having your reps know what they're talking about, having your reps have the relationship with those accounts, being able to say, hey, A, I know this is coming out, B, I know what it is, C, I know my customers well enough to know I'm going to need this number of this, I'm going to need that number of that, and this is what's going to sell. And sometimes you're wrong. We had Alpha Session recently from Drake's, which is one of my favorite beers. It just didn't move the way I'd hoped it would. But when we have Aroma Coma, and it blows the doors off. And sometimes you just don't know what's really going to sell down to the consumer. But because guys like David and Jen and Molly, these people I work with who are so amazing, they know their customers so well. We've gotten better and better and better about doing that.
Is that a market thing? Is that a market-specific thing to LA? You know, the different types of beers that are selling well? I mean, what are some of the style trends that you guys are noticing here in LA? Sour.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Anne, for you?
Well, you know, the wheats,
IPA.
I don't know, Allagash White is continually our highest seller.
Why do you think that is?
Racism. Yeah. Well, how does the black sell?
You know, we get that in and it doesn't sell as well. It's
Just
true.
saying.
I don't know.
No, anything.
Not me, folks.
And we're already over time here.
Just another 20 minutes on race relations.
But the thing is that you really have to have at least 10 IPAs at any given time. You do.
Is that on a 6-rail bar or how much?
You know, well,
Well, how
you
many
know,
tap
okay,
handles
let's
do you
say
have?
in a 30 tap handle restaurant, you know,
10 IPAs?
at least.
A third of them have to be given to IPA.
Do I
Yeah.
own this bar? Because that sounds amazing to me. But
That's what brings people in.
Yeah.
And then, you know, the person who's really into the IPAs brings in some friends
Right.
who doesn't know beer that well and wants to order something a little more approachable.
would you say
For
then
the
that,
beginner?
to me that category is the Bachelor in Vegas category where it's like there's no faithfulness here. I'm going to go every possible place I can. There's no loyalties in IPA, I'd say. So it's more, I'd say that's proof that it's very exciting style, but it's also
Maybe.
it's hard to build an IPA just because there's so much competition and people are just not loyal to that one brand.
Yeah, but I think there's sort of a new trend towards fresh IPAs, and that's good news for you guys. You know, you know, there's such a difference to have a fresh IPA, dry hop. You know,
So the IPAs
people
is
love
really
it.
growing.
So that's great for local, you
Yeah.
know, for
So
local beers.
IPAs, wheats, and sours are sort of the top three selling beers you think in LA?
I'm
Yeah.
calling it now. Mark my words. Let's put some money on it. Craft lagers are where it's at.
that's
Pilsners and the low alcohol lager. I mean, they're beautiful. They're crisp. They're clean. They're in a style that's approachable, like it or not. New consumers, they see color before they see anything. That's why they like the white. And that is what they're first going to look at. Is they're going to see this golden beer. And these beers are beautiful. They're crisp. They're easy drinking. They're approachable by everybody. And they are, when you taste them, you recognize how perfect they are.
But
You know,
Jace, I got to ask, what is it about LA that you think is going to really drive that in that category?
I don't think it's just LA.
Is it a weather thing? Is it a...
No, I think
Well,
it's
sure. I mean, you know, the window of time we can sell an imperial stout or a barley wine out here is pretty slim. There's never going to be a point at which, to talk about one of my brews, where Trumer Pils is not going to sell in a bar. It's just an evergreen. It's a style that's always, always, always going to be asked for. It goes with really any kind of food. It's approachable to anybody. I'd love to say it's an LA-centric thing, but I really think it's what's going to go on with craft. Obviously, we'd love to think it's going to be sours, but the barriers to entries to making sours are such that I don't think a ton of breweries are going to be able to do it. Lagers are expensive too, but I think they're going to find a way with those.
I think they have to.
Yeah.
I've been
I'd love it.
Yeah.
waiting for 10 years for that to happen. You know?
So, time for one Twitter question here, and then I'll ask one final question. Sort of actually related here. Would LA be better served by more production breweries or more brew pubs, which leads to a richer brew culture?
Brew pub would be nice. I mean, that's, to have one in every, like for every neighborhood to have a brew pub would be great. That's part of the great thing about, you know, Seattle and Portland is that they might not bottle, they might not go anywhere, but you can go and hit up a neighborhood and know there's like 2 or 3 small brew pubs that you can get what you know, you can get beer.
And that's relatively underserved here in LA.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Agreed.
Anne, agreed.
Yeah.
Chase?
Yeah, I'd like to see more brew pubs. I mean, the ones that do really well here obviously do well. I mean, you're starting to see Haven out in the market, and they're a brew pub essentially, and they're distributing their beer. Abigail down in the South Bay, they're distributing their beer. So obviously, I think there's a hunger out there for those, you know, sort of hyper local niche brands.
Interesting. And my final question, which again was a little bit related, if you had to pick one way in which LA-based craft brewers are going to help grow the overall market share for craft, what would it be? And start with you, Jace.
Ask that again. I'm sorry.
The
Just
most-
looking in your beautiful eye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How will LA-based craft brewers grow the overall market share for craft in
Overall
in
market
LA.
share in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles.
I think
What's going to be the key, the key thing that they need to do to grow craft here?
It's camaraderie to me. I think it's honestly it's not trying to overtake the market. It's trying to be part of the market and create an energy about that. And I know within San Diego, at least when I visited, there's a bit of an esprit de corps. We're brewers. We're San Diego brewers. We're not. I want to dominate San Diego, and of course everybody does. But at least when you're at the bar together, you're hugging, you're hanging out, you're grabbing asses, you're doing what you got to do to actually create this energy about it. And if you're more inviting amongst yourselves, you're gonna be more inviting, I think, to the outside. And we're gonna create something. And I'm starting to see it where everybody's a part of this, and a rising tide raises all ships. And I think we can do that here. And I just want to pimp love.
It's
Anne?
I think I love the lager idea.
Brew more lagers.
There you go, guys.
I mean, really, who's doing it?
Yeah. A good craft lager in LA, you think
Yeah.
will help grow the overall.
Yeah, and I also think the women are underserved in craft
Yes.
beer. Look at
Get
this
more
beer.
women.
So what do I don't know really. I don't know if I could answer the question, what do women like to drink, but it'd be interesting to find out what that answer is.
everything.
I'm trying. One by one.
I think Meg would tell you that women's palates aren't any different than men's. So yeah. Oh, better.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. and Jeff, for you,
I think it's consistency and availability.
consistency and availability.
It's if you're bringing something and it's different every single batch, it's hard to grow that, and then you lose the trust, you lose the faith, and then you just need to see it everywhere.
Right. Well, that unfortunately is all the time we have to talk about the LA craft market. Thank you guys. Really appreciate the insight. And keep drinking more beer. Next, we have a really exciting piece of the program. And everybody, if you guys need another beer, feel free to do so. Meg from Golden Road, obviously, and Patrick from the brewery. They're going to debate their business models, so stay tuned for that.